Gary Lisbon, it's great to see you. Thanks again for joining us on the podcast and here for the video. You've got this great book in front of you. Now, when we met for the conversation, the chat about your trip and my trip last year, we didn't have this book.
We didn't, did we?
But I'm pretty sure that the book was very much in your mind at that stage. Talk to us about this beautiful book that we've got here. I'm here picking them up with Gary. We're going to do a little bit of a giveaway with one of the books when I bought a couple for myself, and it's absolutely fantastic. Tell us about, putting this book together.
You're right, we didn't have this book last year. It's a 15-year culmination of images that I've captured from around the world, just showing the diversity of golf around the world. And it is so diverse, as you know, from traveling. And so we've put it together. The bulk shipment arrived about a week ago. We're getting orders out the door. The response has been amazing, and I'm pretty proud of it. It's been a big effort.
We've just sat inside there and had, a thumb through, a very quick thumb through. I can't wait to get it home and, just download on the content that's in there. There's some beautiful photos from all of the parts of the world that I want to go to or have been and want to go back to. When you were traveling around and doing the trip that we'll hear about in a second, is making this book part of your thoughts as you're driving?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
That's, as I say, a 15-year dream, and you look at where you want to go, and we anchored this trip based on Lofoten Links up in Norway for the Northern Lights, and also the Open Championship at St Andrews, and in between was a whole bunch of visits to, I think, 89 golf courses on our last trip. But again, this incorporates places that we didn't go on our last trip, like South Africa and throughout Asia and New Zealand and so on.
It's not your first book.
No.
What are the other catalogues in the title?
Really creative names. So Great Golf Down Under Volume 1, Volume 2 and Volume 3. And then Great Golf Courses of the World. So,
If someone wants to buy the book, and sales have been going great, I believe, how do you buy Great Golf Courses of the World?
Yep, generally buy it online. We've got a website, greatgolfcoursesoftheworld.com, and you can purchase. We ship all around the world automatically for you. You can go into a bunch of retail outlets, some Drummond Golf outlets, and just other places generally. So the golf clubs that are featured within, a lot of the Australian ones will also hold stock. But the easiest way is probably the website, direct shipping to you.
What are the favourite images?
I mentioned,
Too hard?
No, well, yes and no. I mentioned Lofoten Links in Norway. If you haven't been there as a golf lover, it is extraordinary. Northern Lights at night. Most amazing setting for a golf course, built by someone that had a dream of a 6-hole golf course that turned into a 9-hole that turned into an 18-hole. So the images of Lofoten are fantastic. Up around Scotland, whether it's your places like Muirfield, down south in Ireland like Old Head, just the drama of the setting. But I think also continental Europe was something that blew me away. Places like the Netherlands and in France and Spain and so on, different kinds of golf experiences.
Now, one thing that, if you're watching this on the video, obviously you can't hear it on the audio, but the book it's not your traditional book shape, is it?
No, it's not.
I reckon that's a great bit of marketing because, there's one place that this book's not going to be able to sit, and it's going to have to sit front and centre in front of everyone on a coffee table. Tell us about the shape.
It's very true. It won't, and I tried to do it. I tried to sit it in a bookshelf and it doesn't sit.
No.
So it's panoramic in style and it actually folds upwards. So you'll see that all the images present in this kind of way. So that's something a little bit different. I won't claim it's my idea. Fellow photographer, a guy called Ken Duncan, who many of you will know, has produced a book along these lines. But I thought that the nature of panoramic images of a golf course should be represented in a panoramic style. So it's worked well.
Well, Gary, I can't wait to get it home and go through, and you've been an absolute huge supporter of mine in being an amateur photographer and having an interest in a world that you make your living out of. Your little messages and the comments around when you think I've taken a great photo, really do appreciate it, and it means the world to me.
Don't undersell yourself.
No.
You are a very good photographer, Roscoe, and you have an eye, you have a passion, and I just encourage you to keep doing it.
I appreciate that. And I also appreciate your very kind gesture of giving us one of these books that we're going to do. We'll work out on a great giveaway, which we'll do after this episode, which you'll be able to go into running to get this great book, Great Golf Courses of the World. Gary, thanks very much for joining us to celebrate the launch of this wonderful book. And now, here's Gary and I talking about our trip last year, where some of the images in this book were captured and conceived. Here's Gary and I.
Thanks, Roscoe.
Gary Lisbon, welcome to the My Love of Golf podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you joining us here today. We've been chatting for a little bit about doing this, but, it seems like we've been chatting for a while because, I followed with great intensity your trip to Scotland and to many other parts of the golfing world in Europe. I was there at the same time, and there's a few message exchanges, and we must have felt like we were driving past each other at points. We'll talk about that. Gary, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Ross. Thanks for having me. It's a wonderful honour. I sort of love listening to your podcast and the diversity of people that you're interviewing, and humbled to be one of those. So I think you're right. You're right. We're in Scotland, and as we were just saying, we probably passed each other on different roads. You going down the road, me going up the road.
Well, without turning it into a travel brochure for Scotland, we'll talk about some of those destinations. But firstly, I guess, I think a lot of people that know me, know the podcast, know my developing love for looking at golf through the lens. And, I think it's really helped me appreciate golf at a greater level by, just taking time to, view a golf course in a certain way. And a lot of people know you as, Gary Lisbon Golf Photographer, but I know you over the journey with your other party business, Golf Select. Tell us a little bit about Golf Select, and then we'll talk about the photography part.
Sure, and probably a background even before that. Chartered accountant, worked for KPMG for many years. Got out of that, worked with Ian Baker Finch for a short period of time, and then started Golf Select. So focusing on running corporate events, importing golf giftware. That then morphed into golf holidays for people around the world. And photography was the passion that became a pretty big part of our business.
And that Golf Select business, that's probably where I first came across you. Obviously you run the golf days. If any of the Mercedes-Benz drivers here have been on a Mercedes-Benz golf day, you've been doing them for a number of years. So that's where I first came across, and you do a wonderful job doing those golf days, and not just for the car companies, but for all the people that you do them for. And I think I saw you last, the Peninsula Kingswood one. So great stuff. It's a skill morphing a passion into a business. It's certainly what I've tried to do. Investing in a golf business, i.e. Drummond Golf, and then trying to expand that level of interest. And I guess basically for me, bring my experiences through podcasts, through my experiences in the shop, just to give people a little bit more of an insight into that world. And I guess for me, looking at golf through the lens now is a little bit more of that. For you're very, very giving with the work that you do in your photography space, and you share a lot of it, and a lot of people love that. What is it about golf photography that you think people are so enamored with and so drawn towards? What are your sort of appreciation and impact of that?
I mean, you look at golf around the world, Ross, and it's so different. It's so diverse, and I think that's what golfers love. They love feeling as though they're in the image that they're viewing at hand. So to date, I think I've photographed 650 odd courses in 25 different countries, and they're all different, whether it's golf in South Africa compared to golf in Norway, Scotland, Australia, etc. It's all different. So we all share a common love and frustration with golf, I think, and being able to show that visually really creates a sense of, gee, I want to be there. It's sort of that, wow, wouldn't it be great to be there? And I think with social media forums such as Instagram, we're seeing where everyone is. So I'm seeing where you are, and people are seeing where I might be, and they're just commenting, and it's just a nice little back and forth interaction.
Was the photography part of your life, is that just a passion that developed, or,
It was.
No
formal training. Just a case of getting up. Kingston Heath, I think, was one of the first courses I took photos of, and it was just in a very informal basis. Went out with my little snap camera, took some photos that the club thought were okay, and then if you sort of fast forward to actually Gavin Kirkman, before he became the head of the PGA, was at Lakelands, and he said, "Why don't you come up here and do some photos?" And I did some photos for them, and then I went up to to far north Queensland, up to Paradise Palms. And I still remember Michael Waters at the time was saying, "Hey, Gary, with these photos, can you sign a photo so that when you're famous, I can look back on it?" And I just sort of laughed, because I never viewed the photography as part of the business. It was just a passion. I loved getting out, taking photos, but it morphed pretty quickly from a passion into a very big part of our business.
So how long did it take to become, Gary at Kingston Heath with a snap camera into, Gary, world-renowned, globally recognized, provider of photography for some of the world's best golf courses?
Yeah, just a gradual thing. I think, as I say, once I started thinking of myself as a golf course photographer rather than just a happy snapper, that's when I got a bit more serious. I got a business card printed, and then I thought, okay, maybe I am a golf course photographer. And then it's just the passage of time. It's probably 3 or 4 years to get known within the Sandbelt region, which is where I live. That then morphs into the rest of Australia. It pops over to places like Cowrie Cliffs and Cape Kidnappers. Some of the stuff I did there, not with drones, but with helicopters back in the day, and then morphing into the worldwide scene. First the UK, then into Europe, USA, etc. And the whole social media scenario provides that forum to showcase your images on a worldwide basis.
You continue to travel and experience golf around the world, and some of those destinations you return to. I know when I returned more, obviously recently to Scotland, I went to a number of places that I'd visited before. I enjoy the fact that I can go there and I always see something different. Does that does that happen for you, or how does that materialize?
Yeah, very much so. I think the first time you go to a place like Scotland, you're going to want to tick off all your marquee courses, your open rota courses. You want to go to St Andrews. You want to go to other places like the Ayrshire coast with Turnberry and Troon and Prestwick and those kinds of places. But then maybe on a subsequent trip, you might then go up to the Highlands. You go up to Dornoch, you go up to Brora, you visit Castle Stewart. So for me, over the 7 or 8 times I've been to Scotland, it's been a gradual process of first ticking off all of the main courses, but then in subsequent visits, going to places that I may not have seen before or been before. And that's what's been so cool about it. I was just looking at my photography summary of Scotland. I think 54 courses are the number of courses I've photographed in Scotland. Now, certainly there are a lot more than that, but I'm looking Ardfin, Bodofgarten, Brora, Carnoustie, Ely, Dundonald, Dunbar, all of those kinds of places. It's great. The high level stuff is great, but also the under the radar stuff is arguably what I like more. And you probably feel the same way, that there's some real gems out there that people don't know about.
Oh, I definitely feel that way, and I would love to spend more time there. And I will get that chance to spend a lot of time in Scotland and do all of that. But it's not going to be a photograph course, and I've spoken about it before, but there's a place in Dunbar called Winterfield. Now, you love Dunbar golf course around the coast a bit. Just back the way towards North Berwick, there's another little course, and it's largely a public course called Winterfield. And it's just relatively flat, but it's up on the cliff, on that coastline, small pot bunkers everywhere. So traditional links, it's off fescue. I played on a fairly benign day, but you can imagine that coast, it's always windy and the conditions are there. And it's £30. If that, to go and play there. And I flew the drone there. I took some photos, and I was there with my uncle and my uncle's brother-in-law and that sort of thing. And it was just magnificent. And there are dozens of courses like that no one's ever heard of, and no one would ever go to on a destination golf trip. But I just loved it, and really just, for me, it was the opportunity to sort of stand back and say, there's not just the high-end links. There's just golf. Golf is part of that Scottish DNA, and people walk to the course and all of that sort of thing. So, Ely's a little bit like that, although I've loved watching courses, as people like yourself have highlighted them, elevate in the desirability of going there. Ely, I think, is one of those, and those courses along that Fife Coast I'd never heard of 15 years ago, and not that I was that involved in golf about 15 years ago, but I'd never heard of. And I think, yourself and Evan and Nick and all of those guys that, are doing great work have just elevated them to this next level. And I think they should be very thankful of your work, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that course. Another one along that route is the Glen, which is the other course at North Berwick.
Yep.
not the renowned links, but the other links that's perched right up on the cliffs. You get some amazing vistas over the course there, and it punches above its weight. And the green for your right, it's probably 40, 45 pounds. It's just ludicrous.
I haven't played at the Glen. I've been there. I took my dad there in 2019, and we walked up to the, where you can park the car and walk up there. And
Sure.
I haven't played. So for me, not playing the Glen is a great reason to go back. I love, that's sort of the mindset that I haven't played there. It just means that I've got to go back there. Yourself and Maureen, had this trip of a lifetime, to explore not just Scotland, but a lot of the parts of Europe. Give us an insight into, the snapshot of the itinerary, what that looked like, and was it set in stone beforehand, or was it a moving feast? Did it evolve?
Well, it's a good question. COVID obviously mucked up a variety of travel plans for everyone around the world, but we determined that, okay, this was going to be the year, and a whole lot of things fed together to create this 13-week trip. So first thing to do was try and convince Maureen that she should be out of Australia for 13 weeks, which wasn't more like hey, we're going to be out for 13 weeks. It's more progress. Maureen, can we go out for 9 weeks, 10 weeks, and gradually it built up to 13 weeks. But there were two anchor points in the whole itinerary. One was the Open Championship at St Andrews, which was obviously middle of July. And the other one was getting to Norway and a place called Lofoten Links at the end of August, early September, so that we get the Northern Lights. They were the two anchor points, and then we wrapped everything else around that. Supplementing that was some work that I'd been trying to do for a number of courses in Spain, Valderrama, Sotogrande, and a course in Madrid called Puerto Hierro, where we just couldn't get there because of COVID. So we sort of fed those in, and we gradually supplemented the itinerary that way. We then added the rest of Scotland. We added in some island stuff. England, which just quietly punches so far above its weight. It is such a good golf destination, England, and it just gets overshadowed by Scotland and Ireland big time. And then into Europe, and then into sort of continental Europe, like your France, Netherlands, there's some great stuff there. Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, obviously. So it came together over maybe a 4-month period. You then have to sort of juggle things like availability and logistics and travel back and forth with planes and trains and automobiles, but it all came together well, and we only had one set of lost golf clubs. That's it, for 3 days.
And you had to drive. You were chasing up the airline. You were being very proactive in getting your gear back, because there was obviously a small window between when you had to leave that destination, move to the next. So I remember following that and seeing, asking the question, should you stay, should you go, should you get them?
Yeah.
And they turned up. The airport was 50 miles away, but the luggage was actually like 5 miles away. What was the story there?
I was insane. First thing for all everyone listening, put an air tag in your golf bag. Hands down, it's the best monitoring device ever. So that's what saved me. We were going from Shannon in Southwest Ireland through Heathrow and into Charles de Gaulle in Paris. So the clubs got to London, but they never got to Paris. And we then had to start tracking them. The airline had no idea where they were. I had more of an idea about where they were than the airline did. We were heading south of Paris to a place called Les Bordes. And I was over breakfast the next morning. I just had a casual look at the AirTag to see where it was, thinking that it should be north of Paris, up around Morfontaine area. But here it was 30 miles south of where we were. And I'm thinking, what's going on? Did some pushing, did some ringing around, screamed a little bit, and then finally determined that the clubs were sitting in a warehouse about half an hour away from me. So I drove down there, was reunited with my clubs, caught it all on video, and it provided some nice fodder for social media.
Look, I think you were very lucky to get them back as soon as you did, because there was no secret. Especially you travel with the group. You had a group of clients over there for the Open, who I assume were there for golf as well. We all know what happened post the Open, when half of the golfing world just descended on probably mainly Edinburgh Airport, but maybe Glasgow Airport, but Edinburgh Airport copped the brunt of it. And I even think still to this day, there is a warehouse full of, golf travelers, golf clubs that all got left behind. So I think that was a pretty fortunate outcome that, the old AirTag seemed to save you.
It did indeed. We had one client, Natalie, who I was chatting to her last week. We're talking from July to November. they still haven't found her golf clubs. And then just after that, they said, yeah, we found them, but you need to come back to England and get them yourself at your own cost. We're not going to ship them to you. So she filed an insurance claim and got new clubs. So it was extremely frustrating. And you would have all seen the photos in the paper of golf flags piled high and frustration. I can imagine how frustrating it would have been not to have your clubs.
On that trip, were there any? What were the courses that you hadn't been to before? There were probably, if there were many, what were the ones that was the standout ones that you just had to get to that you hadn't been to?
There's a couple. Ardfin on the island of Jura, which is a Bob Harrison designed course. I love that for the fact that it's so difficult to get to, and I think we as golfers love the challenge of getting to places. In an Australian landscape, it was going to be initially places like Barnbougle and King Island, but they're an absolute breeze compared to getting to something like Jura, where Ardfin is, or even Lofoten Links, where up in Norway. So, Ardfin is wonderfully opulent, 6-star accommodation, a very, very good, challenging golf course, 2-hour ferry ride from the mainland to the island of Islay, then another little car ferry onto the island of Jura, then you drive and you're there. So I love that sort of element. Loch Lomond, I went back to Loch Lomond, hadn't been there for 10 years and just realised how special that was. Just going through my list here, I went to a place called Anstruther this time, which Jeff Shackelford I saw was talking about having the world's hardest par 3, and I can attest to that. Pretty tough 250-yard par 3 right along the water. Again, nothing fancy in terms of being a golf course, but just a really nice experience. London links, Leven links, etc. Where else? Getting back to that whole Ayrshire coast is great. Places like Western Gales, that again sits probably in the shadow of its more illustrious rivals like Troon and Turnberry. Getting there was pretty special as well. And then in East Lothian, you've got some wonderful stuff. North Berwick's one of my favourite courses, but really enjoy Muirfield as well. So there's a whole abundance of places. Dunbarney Links was another new kid on the Black Bolt block that I visited just south of St Andrews, sort of modelled on that Kingsbarn pay-for-play kind of scenario. And probably one I'm looking over here now was Musselburgh. So Musselburgh links around the around the racetrack. So 7 years earlier, I'd been there and I had the drone but didn't put it up. So I was saying to myself, okay, I need to get a sunrise shot of the race course with the golf course in the middle, and I managed to get that. So it's quite satisfying.
I think the sun gods, must have been allocating all of the sun to you on that trip, and none to the the rank amateurs like me, because I was there with the drone. I actually bought a new drone to go over there. The drone. We'll talk about drones in a sec, but I read up that the drone laws are quite strict over there. I've got the there's a couple of licenses here in Australia which you can have, just the basic stuff, and then the next one, and then the next one I'm in the middle there, so under 2 kilos. But I bought a new one. DJI, we all fly DJI drones, a little 249 gram drone, which basically gave you a lot of freedom, and it was a really super powerful drone. I got up at 4 a.m. one morning, a couple of mornings, to go down to, I wanted to do North Berwick, what was the sequence? Muirfield, and then drive down to North Berwick, and then I was playing at Dunbar that morning, so I thought I'll get the sun at one of those places. No sun. I tried to do the same another day. Got up early, no sun. And then when, as we said before, we were crossing paths, you were there, always sun. So you always got the sun. Is there a special, what do you use to always get the sun?
We were blessed, Roscoe. A lot of prayer went into that. But you're right, we were away for 102 days, and I think we had 2.5 days of rain during that time that affected golf course. Now, just because you don't have rain doesn't mean you've got good conditions. So obviously cloud cover is a big one, particularly in places like Scotland. But it didn't always work. St Patrick's Links over in Ireland, which is a wonderful new course at part of the Rosapenna resort there. I had 2.5 minutes of sunshine over 4 days. So, it doesn't always work, but no, we were really blessed to get the majority of courses that I needed to get done we had the right weather.
Yeah,
You mentioned about you also
Yeah.
mentioned about drones, and everyone's got a drone now, don't they? Everyone puts a drone in the sky and thinks, gee, I'm a golf course photographer. But increasingly, you've got those regulation issues about where you can fly drones, where you can't. And I actually did a fair bit of study and became an EU certified drone pilot, and then became also a UK certified pilot, because the two are separate, in addition to what you have, similar to me in Australia, the REPL and the REOC. So meaning we can fly, but you think that's it. You then go to a place like Spain, and that's a whole nother level, because in Spain, you need someone with you. The golf clubs had to hire someone that stood alongside me while I did the shooting for 10 days.
What was the background for that? What was the reason for that? Because I remember once again, I saw that and I thought, wow, that it was like a military operation.
It was a military operation that also got changed at the last minute, because they had a NATO meeting in Madrid, meaning that they imposed a 5-day exclusion zone. You can't fly drones within 5 days before and after the NATO meeting. And that's when I was due to be there. So we had to chop and change around our timings. But they're just rules that the Spanish authorities in particular have. And it was a great cost to the golf club to get someone on board to stand alongside me, but he did all the appropriate paperwork, and we made it happen. So I would caution any of your listeners, don't just put a drone up. It's pretty scary, the ramifications, especially around airfields. Just be really, really careful about that and observe and understand what the regulations are, because the penalties are huge, but also the safety issues are there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's something I've become obviously more and more conscious of right from the first time that I put a drone up and started to realize, this just isn't a toy. And, so even my little drone, had a special number and it was registered, and I had to do the test over there. And even though I'm not sure the 249, your big drone, I've got my big drone there. It's a kilo, maybe a kilo. My other little one's 249 grams. It was bizarre, because you can seemingly fly that anywhere over people and all that sort of thing, but the bigger drone you can't. But what I know and notice now, as you say, everyone's got a drone, everyone can put it up, is people are flying drones over golf courses. And I saw a photo yesterday and I just scratched my head, taking photos of people's houses, for example. And it's just, to me, it seems like a big no-no. Just because there's a nice house next to a golf course, you might think it looks like a nice photo, but it's someone's house, and someone lives there. And it's not something that if you take a photo of it, it's not something that really either should be shared. But certainly the laws and the licenses are like, you don't take photos of people's houses. It's against the rules. And I get worried about when I see that it makes people like me, who are very much an amateur, look bad.
Oh, it does. Yeah, privacy is paramount. And the problem with all of these renegades who are doing things that they shouldn't be doing is that it then causes the authorities to come down harder on the industry as a whole and put other hoops that we need to jump through. So I think the licensing and the regulations have got better over time, certainly, and companies like DJI have done a better job at geofencing and preventing you travelling within certain areas, particularly around airstrips. So when I was on the Lancashire coast, sort of around Birkdale and so on, I went out to Formby. There's a RAF base there called Woodvale, had to get the application, had to get the approval, do all that kind of stuff. Same at Lytham as well. But you do it the right way, they give you the access. But at a place like Formby, even there, that had sort of limitations as to where you could go. And thankfully, the drones these days won't go into areas that you are not allowed to go into.
Yeah, and I definitely learned that near a football stadium, funnily enough, in Edinburgh. There's a football stadium not far from there, and actually I support the team. And I was conscious that I couldn't go over there, but I was near there because my mother-in-law is near there, and it basically just shut me down straight away, said, you can't take off here. Oh, fair enough. So, you're right. Gary, you mentioned Ardfin there, and you were on the way out to Ardfin. We probably crossed paths. You were going on the ferry at Kennecraig across there. I was going on the ferry from Clonaigue back to the Isle of Arran, Lochranza, and you were on the big ferry there. You get out to Jura, and you've got Ardfin. the part that I love about that place, I haven't been there one day, maybe not. It's probably unobtainium for me, but it's two Aussies. It's two Aussies on a Scottish isle in the west coast of Scotland. Bob Harrison, the course designer, architect, and builder, and then Mr. Coffee, who's the owner.
Yes.
It's insane. Have you meet Greg? Did you meet Greg or
No,
did you?
no, he wasn't there. He was somewhere else in the world. But I've known Bob for many, many years, and during the development of the course, Bob was telling me about this course he's building for an Aussie guy, and it's going to be this, and you have to get this ferry and that ferry and that ferry and do all of those things. And I'm sort of going, wow, this is hard. And then you sort of plan the trip yourself, and you have a fuller understanding and appreciation of the effort to get to it. But it's a very, very special property. I was reading yesterday that George Orwell actually wrote part of his book 1984 on the island of Jura. So it's renowned for that, but also for whiskey. There's some distilleries there. But aside from that, it's a very big island that has a single lane road that goes around the whole island. You've got a variety of passing bays that happen every couple of 100 metres, not much traffic. But next door, the island of Islay, where another course called the Macquarie was great, because we weren't originally going to go there. We were going to get the foot ferry from Tavalic, I think, up to the top of Jura and then drive down, get driven down. But we decided to get the car ferry, and so having the opportunity to visit and stay at the Macquarie was really, really cool as well.
Once again, I got as far as Machrihanish, and
that's good. Love Machrihanish.
It was, everyone knows that's listened to me, talk about Scotland and Scottish golf and the trips, know that I fell in love with Machrihanish. Previous to that, it was probably a course in Ireland that was my drop me anywhere place, and I'll stay there for a month, a year, or whatever. It was Lahinch, but I'm pretty sure it might be Campbelltown and Machrihanish there now. Good people there as well. And I always give him a shout out when we talk about Machrihanish, but Robbie Wilson down there, he's Scotland's great unofficial ambassador for the Mull of Kintyre and that whole peninsula. He loves it when I say his name. He always tweets it out and says he'll put this out and say, minute 27.
Yes.
Listen to that part. Very good.
Best opening tee shot, don't you think? Machrihanish, that opening tee shot just is one for the ages.
It's just a special place. The whole place. I just loved it. You obviously went to the Open and you had a couple of days there. It was a special Open for golf. It was a special Open for us Aussies, with obviously Cam Smith winning. How did your guests that you had there for the travel part of the trip experience it? What was their feedback? Maybe.
Oh, it's amazing. It was just amazing. We went on Saturday, Sunday. We saw on Saturday everything was lipping out for Cam Smith. Nothing was really dropping. We then went in there with sort of expectations that something may happen, but a four shot lead, I think it was, to Rory and Victor. It's pretty hard to peg back. And then we started watching Cam early, and nothing was happening. Nothing was going, and he should have made birdie on 9. Nothing happened there. And then, bang, he went on that tear, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Extraordinary. Those putts that he holed, the way that he did it. But for me, it was that up and down on 17 that was extraordinary, as we've all seen. Missed the green left. You can't go over the road bunker, so what do? You putt up and you trust your putt into 10, 12 feet and you hold the putt. Maureen and I went back to that spot a couple of days after the Open, because we were in St Andrews after the Open as well. And we just sort of tried to map it out. What would we do? So again, he was so calm under pressure. There was never a change in his demeanour. It was always the same focused look, discussed with his caddy without any real emotion, and he just executed brilliantly. So all of our clients that came with us loved that. We're in the area where the big TVs are and the merchandise spaces as well, post-Open. And here we are, a bunch of Aussies cheering and yelling and screaming, and many, many others that were there that were just giving us death stares because obviously they wanted Rory to win. Special.
Yeah, it was, a special time. But I remember that part of the facility where you were near the merch tent. The merch tent sold out of merch within about 3 days, so you couldn't buy anything. There was a few bars and whatnot there, but it was packed. Like if you think about a big Grand Prix here in Melbourne, if you've ever been to a Grand Prix, there was more people than that. There was like several times more people. It was a massive party atmosphere. I felt, I watched from the other side those last 2 holes, and I definitely got the sense that there was a lot of love for Cam. I think people were disappointed that Rory didn't win. I think they were probably overridingly Rory fans, and Rory's had a great year in golf out with. But I definitely felt there was a lot of Cam love. Maybe the Aussies were over there. I got down on the 18th and just seemed to be surrounded by Aussies, and it was a great experience. Let's talk about some of the other parts of the trip. You mentioned Lofoten links up in Sweden. It's Sweden, yeah?
Norway.
Norway. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
I've seen it on Eric's videos. It's, once again, for me, it's probably a place of unobtainium, but to see you there for the first time, what was that like? How's the journey to get there? What like, how do you get there, and what happens when you do get there? Talk about the Northern Lights.
It's you're right. We see these destinations from when other people showcase them. So Eric Anders Lang, a mutual friend of both of ours, did a great doco on that. So look that up on YouTube. Wonderful. But then another guy called Jakob Schloman, who's a photographer that I admire greatly, Swedish guy, took a wonderful photo of the second hole, par 3, out to a promontory with the Northern Lights in the background. And I said to myself at that time that I first saw that image, gee, I want to get there and I want to capture similar shots. Just be wonderful to have the Northern Lights in shots. So that sort of put the thought in my head. And as I said at the start of the episode, they were the 2 anchor points, the Open and then Lofoten Links. And Lofoten Links, a month or 2 earlier, so July, it's pretty much landed the midnight sun. So you're playing golf at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning. Victor Hovland went there and shot the course record 63, drove the first par 4 over the water, made eagle in tough conditions and shoot 63. We said, okay, we need to be there end of August. How do you get there? We're in Copenhagen doing some work for Royal Copenhagen Golf Course, which actually, just as an aside, is a private golf course in a deer preserve that has 2,500 deer. And I'm talking the deer that have the tall antlers. These are scary looking things. So that was quite interesting. But you fly from Copenhagen up to Oslo. You then fly from Oslo on a 2-hour flight up to Venice or Harstad. You then hop in a car and drive on the other side of the road with these huge timber lorry trucks coming the other way at 100 kilometers an hour on roads that are about this narrow. And you eventually get to Lofoten Links at 10:30 at night, and you're just thankful to be there. You then stay in one of their beautiful lodges they have on site. You wake up the next morning and you're just in awe. You're in absolute awe of this place. That Frode Hov is one of the owners there and the visionary behind it. It was a 6-hole golf course that turned into a 9-hole golf course that then became an 18-hole golf course. And pound for pound, it is arguably one of the most visually spectacular places I've been in my life. And you know me, I love Cypress Point, and that is just amazing. I dream now about Lofoten Links, Ross. I'm sorry. I just get up and I just go, remember that. And I took some photos with the Northern Lights, but again, that's hard. I take my hat off to Jakob because he had a tripod and all of that stuff. I was doing all of this handheld, trying to get long exposures, trying to get the lights and get everything in focus. So I got a couple of shots that are nice, but what a place. Hard to get to, very short season, but you must go there. You have to go there.
I will get there. I'll make it my purpose to get there.
Good.
Well, that part of the world, summertime, Scotland, north of Scotland, obviously up there in Norway and Scandinavia, as you mentioned before, the days are long, and that's a great part. That's a great part of being a golfer over there. Being a photographer, when you want rise and fall of sun. Did you actually have any sleep when you're on that whole trip?
You run on adrenaline, and you're right. The sun's getting up at 4-ish, 4:30-ish, and it's going to bed at 10:30-ish. So in between, you need to sleep. And I don't know how I did it. I think we probably averaged about maybe 4.5, 5 hours a night for maybe a couple of months period. Maybe some odd naps during the day, but I think I was just adrenaline focused more, and just couldn't believe that I was doing what I was doing every morning and every night. But you do it because you know you're in the place for just a short period of time, and if the weather is anything half decent, you know you want to be there, because if you're not, you're going to get up the next morning and go, oh, what could have been if I just had have got up? I would have got these amazing photos. You just do it. Do what's needed.
Sleep, it's overrated. First world problems. Talking about traveling the golf photography, but I thought about that a lot of times when I was following your posting. I thought, Gary's not sleeping here because you've got to be on the road at 4 o'clock to be ready. You mentioned something there before, and Jakob, who, credit to Jakob, he is one of the handful of the golf photography community, and there are a number of people, but Jakob, very much so. If you send him a message, he replies. Yeah. He is so giving of his time, and I remember I asked him about a photo once, and I was just curious about what length lens he took that on, and within a day, he's got an answer back, and I really respect and appreciate that. You're exactly the same. I imagine you must get bombarded with messages from amateur golf photographers and people who are wanting to know about the destinations, and you're always very giving of your messages and responses. We talk about gear, so you said up there, and your hand holding, and to capture light and so on and so forth, exposure times, if there's any movement in the camera, it just can ruin a photo. What sort of gear did you travel with for this length of time?
Again, you're traveling for 13 weeks, so you can only travel with so much stuff. So from a drone perspective, I don't have a big drone. I have the Mavic 3, which is a great compact drone, very, very powerful in terms of image resolution and quality. So there's the drone with a smart controller. Cameras take a couple of bodies. I have Canon, so Canon 5D Mark III and Mark IV, and then a few lenses, 16 to 38, 35, I think, 24 to 105, and a 70 to 200. So that's sort of it. And then lots of batteries, particularly for the drone, and you put it all into a backpack, and you try and carry it on the plane rather than check it in.
Yep.
So you've got it at the other end, because that in itself's an issue, isn't it? That here we are going over to a place for a photo shoot. If they lose your luggage, goodbye photo shoot. So that's it. Sort of a nice, stable, small, compact suite of equipment that just helps. But can I go back on one point you mentioned about responding on social and to comments that come in?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's so important, Ross. You're right about Jakob and people like Kevin Murray and Evan Schiller and those guys, and Nick Wall as well. My contemporaries, I really love bouncing interactions back and forth with them, asking them questions. But then also there's the people that follow you, and they ask questions as well, and they might be starting out in their photographic journey. And it's great to be able to give something back, because I remember what I was like way back at the beginning, where I knew nothing. And there's one person who's a good friend who sticks in my head, a guy called David Cannon, who you would know, one of the best photographers going around. Yeah, many Opens and Masters.
There's his book, the Sevi book, right?
Yes. There exactly. The Sevi book as well. So David and I was at Cowrie Cliffs with Maureen, and David was there shooting a book, coffee table book, and he went up in Julian Robertson's helicopter, and he said to me, just a little beginning photographer, do you want to come up with me? And he then showed me a few things. We had the door off, we were hanging out the door, and I've still got some of the best images of Cowrie that I've ever seen. But he took the time out to spend that time with me to understand and just to help me. And what was even more amusing was we were at Hoylake, Royal Liverpool. We were staying down the road in a Holiday Inn, and I walk out to do an evening photo shoot. Bang, who do I bump into? But David Cannon. He's there shooting some stuff for the Open next year. So we had a good catch up. So I think it's important, if people spend time investing in you, you need to do that to the next generation. So I don't mind. I try, where possible, to answer any comment on social media that people might have.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't get a lot of questions about photos, but I get a lot of questions about Peninsula Kingswood and how to play there and can we play there. And it's not possible to take everyone on, but we've just had David Jones on there for the first time, which hopefully he enjoyed it, and he wants to bring people back. And he was over there with you, and he had a wonderful trip. People sometimes don't believe that he packed so much golf into like 9 days. And I took some photos in the clubhouse at PK, and I just flicked them to him. I said, "Oh, look, if you need these, I don't think you took anything, but here's just some quick photos if you need them for any of the stuff that you're putting together for your trip." He says, and then what did I do? I sent him another picture of something of Gullen, and he lives the first time. Sorry, I know I was going somewhere with this, Gary. The first links experience I had was at Gullen, and I remember early 2000s. I drove up the back of Gullen there to the 7th hole on the top, and it was blowing like an absolute hoolie. Like it was like stand on an angle like this, and you wouldn't stand over. I wasn't playing golf, but I just wanted to go and see it because it was in my mind. My dad would go to Gullen when he was a kid and all that sort of stuff. And it turns out to be very close to where David lives. So I flicked him the photo that I took up there in July, and he said, "Oh, I'll be back there at lunchtime tomorrow. I'll be having lunch there tomorrow." I was like, "Hang on, we've just played golf at Peninsula like a day ago." But he did all this stuff. It's crazy what golf travel is all about, and what guys like yourself can fit into, travel destinations. It's great.
Well, we do, don't we? We try. We're in an area for a short period of time. We try and pack in as much as we can and worry about the consequences later on. His trip was pretty epic, certainly, and bounced around all over the place, but had a really good time. And we would do the same. You did the same over in Scotland, and we did the same in the countries we visited.
Yeah, he's a great ambassador for golf, is David, and that UK golf guy who we're talking about. You can get access to his blog, and he writes so many great articles. So check that out. You mentioned Nick. There's a photo of Nick up there. My favourite place. Did you go to Critch Island when you were in Ireland?
Not on this trip, but previous trip. Frank Casey from Rossapena said, "Gary, you have to go to Critch Island." And also Royal Melbourne member Joe Sheehan said to me, "Gary, you need to go to Critch Island." Oh, how special is that place? Yeah. Really, really cool.
Once again, I dismissed it many years ago. This is my Critch Island story. There's a picture there because Nick took one and I had two made. That one there and one to my auntie, and I shipped that across to Scotland.
Amazing photo Nick took of that place, yeah.
And it sits on her wall, and it reminds her of my late uncle, my dad's twin brother. And my cousin got married on Arran Island, which is just off the coast there. And my uncle would always tell me, "Ross, when you have to go to Ireland, you have to go to this place called Critch Island." And I said, "Critch Island?" He said, "It's 9 holes." And I was like, "Sorry, Uncle Tommy, 18 holes is my limit. Like I don't go anywhere for less than 18 holes." And he said, No. You just get there one day and you go." And we never got the opportunity to go and play there, but it was his favorite course in that part of the world. So when I saw Nick's photo, I got one made for me and one sent across to Scotland for my auntie, which she loves. But what a place. I played there by myself one afternoon as the sun was going down. It was magnificent. Can't wait to get back. Can't wait to get to go and see, talking about Frank Casey, Rossapena.
Oh, yeah.
So St. Patrick's Links.
Yeah. Special.
Special?
Special. The whole thing is special. From the family, the Casey family are the most genuine, hospitable, friendly people we know. The accommodation is wonderfully warm. The food is exceptional. On our first trip there, I was out shooting at night and they brought me a lobster. I wanted lobster for dinner. They brought out a half lobster to the back of the 18th hole on the old Tom Morris course, and so I could eat there. But they're just genuine family. 2 really good golf courses in Old Tom and Sandy Hills, but then St. Patrick's Links is doing for that place what it deserves. It's turned it into a world-class must-play destination. I think it came in at 55 in the Golf Magazine Top 100 recently. It's only going to improve as more people see it, as it matures. It's very, very fun. It's playable. It's testing. It's got enough width to it to cater for all the wind that you get there. And what they did, I don't know if your listeners know the story. There was the land that was there was owned by another farmer, and he had desires to put 36 holes in there. I think Nicholas courses, if I recall, but that sort of fell over during the GFC. In the case, he's got the property, and then they started talking with Tom Doak, and they determined that, hey, yeah, let's just do one quality 18-hole golf course, and that it exudes that all the way. And the logo, how cool's the logo?
Oh, I think everything about Rosapena and St Patrick's Links, the logo, the little snake, and then
the SP,
the SP, and then the Rosapena. Obviously, it's got an R as the logo, so R is always going to be strike a chord with my heart. Frank sent me a cap out. I looked after one of his staff, long-term family members from Downings there. Took him down to Peninsula Kingswood with his son the other week, and Frank sent me a nice hat and a shirt, which was very nice of him, very kind of him. So thank you, Frank, if you're listening. Gary, you've got a trip coming up. You know, you're heading back to New Zealand.
Yeah,
that's another special place. Like, you know, what are your thoughts when you think about New Zealand?
Oh, New Zealand, you know, pre Cowrie Cliffs and Cape Kidnappers, it was probably best known for Paraparam, which is wonderful golf course north of Wellington. I love Paraparam, Alec Russell design, but you then get these resort style courses, Cowrie and Kidnappers, that are visually off the charts and expensive as well, but visually off the charts. But now there's this extra breed of course coming in. Tara Iti is north of Auckland, and the new course that Tara Iti being very, very private, but Tiarai Links is the new sort of public golf course, high-end public golf course that I'm going up there to do some photography and play, and excited about that. And then there's another course, is it the North course, coming online maybe next year in the same area. So Tiarai Links is that's called Core Crenshaw or Doak. That's Core Crenshaw. I think it's called.
Is it? Well, one of the Renaissance golf team had built that because Angela and Clyde were across there doing it. I'm pretty sure it's TRI.
Yeah. Sorry for all those aficionados out there who are just going to shake their heads and go, how can these guys do a podcast? They don't know anything about anything. So they're great, but I'm also going to photograph Royal Auckland, which has been redone, a Nicholas redo amalgamation of the Grange Golf Club and Royal Auckland Golf Club, and they've got a facility there. So that'll be exciting. Yeah.
Is that complete? That obviously is complete.
That's complete. It's complete. It's grown in. I was due to do the shoot maybe a year ago, but COVID got in the way. So that'll be nice seeing that. New Zealand's a cool place. And then you go down south to Queenstown, and that's special as well.
TRI is designed by Tom Doak, and there's two courses. So TRI is TRI Links promises the world of destination. Two courses, Don Doak, and the other by Bill Core and Ben Crenshaw. Yeah. There we go. Sorry for the golf aficionados. I'm talking about architects. You know, do you have a? Yeah, you've seen the classic golden age architects. You know, I think probably in the States. You know, we haven't talked about the States really at all. What's your favorite course over there? There's one.
That's hands down.
So outside of Cyprus, we can come back and finish on Cyprus, and you can leave us with your thoughts on Cyprus. But some of the other courses there that you've had the opportunity to see.
Oh wow, that whole northeast is great. Sort of places like your Pine Valley is very special, very intimidating, but very special. Marion, out on Long Island, your Shinnecock Nationals, Maidstones, those kinds of places. We had a big trip planned in 2020 to do a bunch of stuff in the US and Canada. That got cancelled, so I haven't been to the interior, being your sandhills and your prairie dunes and all of that stuff. But our mutually good friend John Cornish has been and done all of those and played the top 100. So there's plenty of places I need to get to. There's a lot of good stuff there, but Cyprus stands out for me as the place I could play every day for the rest of my life. But there are some other nice areas, granted.
When did you first see Cyprus?
I first saw Cyprus in 1985. I went over for a golf trip with Dad, and we stayed at the Inn at Spanish Bay. and we played Pebble Beach and Spanish Bay and Spyglass, but we couldn't get onto Cyprus. And I was desperate to play there. You know, you drive, for those who know, you drive on the 17-mile drive, and you pretty much, the tee shot on the first hole at Cyprus hits straight over the 17-mile drive, and then you come round and you go down to Fanshawe Beach, I think it is, and that's sort of where there's a pathway that leads you to the 15th hole. So just quietly, between all you and I only, don't mention it, I snuck out one day and I pressed past onto the golf course along that pathway to the 14th, from the 14th to the 15th tee, and you're fearful that someone's going to shoot you or you're going to get strung up by somebody, but that just did it for me, just visually. And the contrast of holes, Ross, the stuff through the forest, the stuff through the dunes, and then obviously the ocean. Ocean stuff is special as well.
And when did you first get the opportunity to photograph it?
To play it or photograph it?
Or both?
Yeah, played it a couple of years later, and have been fortunate to have played it a number of times, and photographing just the times that I'm there with member friends. So it's one of those places that is so visually arresting. It's just exciting. Down the road also, MPCC, Monterey Peninsula Country Club.
Mm-hmm.
It's another wonderful 36-hole facility. So that whole region has got some pretty nice stuff going for it.
Well, Gary, I'm conscious of your time. You're busy getting ready to go on another adventure. You know, we talked about America, and people ask me, when did I discover that I like taking photos of golf courses? And it was back in 1987 with a box, I'm going to call it a box brownie, but you remember as a kid going across there, the Kodak disposable paper cameras, and I have some photos of that I took of PGA West. I was lucky enough to get a game at PGA West with the host family that I was staying with, and you know, when I look back, I thought, well, I must have had an interest back then, because, you know, to make a photo that looked pretty okay like that with a little cardboard disposable camera, there must have been something there. And 30, 40 years later, it starts to come out, and I've got all the gear and no idea now.
No, not at all.
Gary, there's one last topic. Hole-in-one whispering. Now, I know at Golf Select you sell hole-in-one insurance.
Yeah.
I would have hoped that we would have had a game of golf together by now, and I very much hope, because I think most of the people that I know, that you know, end up having a hole-in-one when they play with you.
Yeah, that's happened a few times. Quite interesting. So the aforementioned John Cornish, we were playing the East Coast out here where we live, of Royal Melbourne, and we live near the 14th hole, so we started on the 14th hole. So we play through from 14 through to 18, and then 1 through to 13. Come up to the last shot of the day, which is the 13th hole, which is a great little par 3, into the area where the Murray River gums are. It's a lovely setting. And Cornish steps up with his pitching wedge, I think it was, and just goes bang, dribble, and we think it goes into the hole. So he made a hole-in-one in the last shot of the day, and that was his second or third, I think, and I'd never had one. I was jealous beyond belief. And then about 12 months ago, I was out playing in a comp on that particular hole, and I had a hole-in-one on 13E. So I was very, very happy. And then I followed it up with another one on the same hole 3 months later. But that one apparently doesn't count because I was playing on my own. But I reckon it still does count, don't you?
I'll give it to you. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'd give anyone a hole-in-one. I haven't had one since 1987. And talking about Palm Springs, in 1987, talking about Palm Springs, the only other time I've been close is on the PGA West, the Alcatraz hole, the 17th.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I played there the week after Trevino, Jack Nicklaus, and I can't remember the other two, whether it was Fuzzy Zeller and someone else played there in the Skins game, which they used to have.
Yep.
And Trevino went to the back, obviously with the back tees, hit a 6-iron, knocked it in the hole. I was there the week after and I went to the back tees with my host father. I said, I'm going to the back, I'm going to hit a 6-iron, I'm going to hit it in the hole. And I thinned it. I'm not sure, did John Cornish hit his beautifully, or did he thin his? Oh,
He'll
yeah, that's
claim
not.
that
He,
he'll claim that he hit it just the way he wants, but I reckon it was a bit skinny. But then again, in defence of John, my hole in one was also a skinny shot.
okay, I remember. I thought
And
one of the
maybe
two.
that's the way you do it.
Well, I thinned mine, and it literally was teetering on the edge of the hole. That was the only other time that I've been anywhere near a hole in one, both in the same years. But then there was one other hole in one that you helped whisper, and I was somewhat involved the day before. Our great friend Fergal from US was out here.
Sorry, of course. Of course, yes.
So
So you want to talk through that one?
I leave Fergal, and we played 36 holes at Peninsula Kingswood. A great Irishman, member at Portmarnock, wonderful company, fantastic to spend a day with him, just picking his brains about all the golf courses, much like we're doing now. He jumps on a plane, heads up to Sydney. You pick him up, and what happens?
We pick him up. We drive up to a place called Elliston, which is 4.5 hour drive. We're hosted by a good friend of ours, and we're playing around. And the sixth hole is probably the best par three, most visually spectacular par three at Elliston. It's got a little creek that runs down the left-hand side. It's got a green that sits beautifully and bunkers up on the right. So Fergal steps up with, I don't know what he hits. The guy hits it an absolute long distance. So if I'm hitting a 7-iron, he's probably hitting a wedge. And he just hits it and it slam dunks it and goes in the hole for a 1. So it's a bad thing because we haven't stopped hearing about it for the last 4 months, 5 monts. It comes up all the time.
I'm sure it does.
You want to be humble, don't you? I think you should be humble, more gracious about it.
Oh no! Look, if you have a hole in one at Elliston, you've got to tell the world. But Gary, we need to play golf because I need another hole in one. I haven't had one since 1987. If you heard me say that, so let's try and do that one day.
Let's play PK. I still haven't played it. I photographed it, but haven't played it.
Okay.
I was a member there for 15 years, the old one. So I love the work that's been done there, and I think OCM and Mike Cocking in particular, they do some great stuff.
It's a pretty easy course to photograph.
No, it is.
It's very photogenic, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you would see it. I see the photos you post and I just go, wow, love the angles, love the mood, the feeling. It is a very special place.
No, it certainly helped me learn a little bit about trying to frame up something and just to get a little bit of an insight into the world that you do such a wonderful job at creating, and all of the colleagues that are in that golf photography space, as we said before, a wonderful group of ambassadors for golf. But Gary, you are one of Australia's best, and I really appreciate your time coming on and sharing a whole bunch of random and eclectic stories. But I'm sure there's many, many more. But let's go and have that game of golf one day.
Indeed, Roscoe. Thank you. Thanks for the time, and thanks to all the listeners for listening and watching.
I'll put the links to where you can get access to Gary if you don't already know his Instagram. But if you're thinking about having a golf day, the Golf Select business that Gary owns and operates with a whole cast of people, including Maureen, his wonderful wife, if you're thinking about any of that, you can get in touch with Gary there. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Roscoe.